Okay, this is the top of the template that I've given you. You can fill in the top bit, you're going to have the name of the project. Most organisations, if it's a work-based project, you give it a name and an ID number, just so that it's for the purpose of reference if you're actually reporting on it or whatever else. So, date raised, purpose, so it's actually the purpose of the project. The purpose of this project is to provide a new HR records management system, blah blah. The objectives, so the objectives, if you're not comfortable with that at the moment, don't worry about it, but it's really just listing the things that you'll actually get deliverable out of the actual project. Benefits, this is the thing that I want you to particularly fill in now, okay, and it's not hard. It's simply taking the people you've already got in your stakeholders list and putting them in these boxes. That's all I want you to do.
Not individual names, like not all 50 names.
You would normally summarise those names.
So 50 by delegates, would suppose?
Well, for example, with your delegates, you would say delegates per, you'd summarise it, you'd say delegates attending, and I'll probably put 50 of as detailed in the stakeholders list, and you could provide that separately if you want to. I've given you an example of one of these filled in that's online now. It's a project that I did, and I'll show you that in a moment. So, the reason this is broken up, sponsor, usually one person. Usually you have your name and their position. Okay? Input participants are the people that are contributing to the project, the ones that you're really most comfortable with, the people who are actually going to work on the work that needs to be done to make the project happen. External resources might be government bodies, industry associations, somebody who's going to control what you're doing and what you're not doing, utility companies. Sorry?
Contractors.
Contractors, yes. Okay. Now, recipients, so other people like your delegates. Your recipients might be the car parking managers.
Could they also be the sponsor as well, because the sponsor's going to get something back from?
Yeah, I mean, normally you'd have that person identified once, and if that person was part of the recipients as well, you know, it might be, this is usually a more generic list. It might be, say you're developing a software program that begins to be used. If a different type of impact on them, you might have a national user, an international user, a local user. You might have, like with yours, you'd have local attendees, international attendees. Local, you're not going to have to do accommodation, but somebody travelling interstate or internationally, you'd have, I mean, as I say, there's no right or wrong with this. It's just you recognising somebody should be able to read through this and understand who is going to be influenced by or have influence on the project. So the reason why I have gone through this is not so that we're going into the scope subject. I just want you to take what you've already done and apply it into the scope, which is part of the scope but not the whole thing. At the end of the day, if you believe it needs to be written in a certain way, then do it. As long as you can justify it as to why you've done it the way you have, then it's not right or wrong. As I say, this is not an exact science. It's not something where you can say, it's always going to be like this, because it ain't. In summary, you use the scope template, either mine or your own. You understand that the purpose of the scope is the summary of inputs, contributions, etc. Consider that. You don't have to worry about it in detail. You're going to put eventually, when we finish the scope, we'll put the boundaries around it, and it's important to consider what is within scope as well as what is not. Now, when you read through the template, it's really simple. It's got a dozen headings in it. If you're happy to have a go at doing the rest of it and start thinking about it, then go right ahead. But from the assessment point of view, for the end of the HR subject, it is purely taking the stakeholders and putting it into that scope template. Okay. In the scope and any other documents, one of the things I've talked about is actually telling people bad news, because you will have to. So in your scope, the assumptions and the exclusions are often not what they want to hear, but you'll have to tell them. And it's better to do it straight up front, because then they can make the decision before you spend the money and taking the time and the energy further down the track to be told something that they don't want to be told. So when we get more into the scope discussions and some of the other risk management and all the rest of its subjects, we will go through this in more detail. But boundaries, from a project management point of view, are not only necessary, they will actually be what keeps you employed. If you don't have those boundaries clear at the beginning of it, and people assume you're going to do stuff and then you don't, it doesn't matter how right or wrong you are, it's your backside that's going to get kicked in the nicest possible way. So think of your boundaries right from day one and make sure that people like the project sponsor, etc., sign off that scope before you actually get to the stage where you present it to anybody else. Yep.
The scope document is like seems to be like an overview of what can happen or can't happen.
Yep.
So obviously there's different scopes as well that you have to give to the plumber or you have to give to the electrician or you have to give to
No, scope of works is a bit different. This is a scope based on the whole project.
the...
It's not normally a scope of works.
So this is the scope?
Yeah. You're not doing a spec, you're not doing a detailed spec of works, which would be different again. From the HR point of view, to finish the subject tonight, the two requirements are for you to put the stakeholders in that document and to understand why they're there and to do your position description. All right. Now,
what is the benefit on the top?
The benefit?
Yeah, what it means?
Well, the benefit from the company's point of view as to why they're going to do it.
Why?
Why? So with your project, it's a little bit more substantial. I mean, you've got to build a coal distribution facility. But the benefit, what's the benefits? You know, like it meets you with your strategic plan. It might be that you go into a joint venture with a competitor so that you remove their competitive advantage. Depends on what the benefit is. The benefit for a building is that, you know, we want to live in a house that we want to live in rather than somebody else's build. The benefit for doing an engineering project when it comes to rail may be that it future-proofs a rail network, that you're not going to have as many breakdowns, that you're not going to, you know, the benefits for each project are going to be different. But it's the benefits. It might be cost saving. You know, the whole reason why you're doing a project, like a car park relocation structure, is because it's going to save them money. That might be the only thing. Or it might be that it's all going to be in one building, so the risk for insurance is lessened, or whatever it might be. So your benefits are going to be individual to your own project. For Ms. Jumping Jaws, it might be that she can be self-employed and run her own business. So it depends on the project.